Now, I thought this morning I'd be talking with Dr. Bryce Edwards on the topic of the government's announced welfare policy changes this week, or perhaps the fact that former Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister has decided to step down. But live from a park in Nelson, breaking news in politics this morning. Bryce, kia ora, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Morning, Andrew. Yes, we should talk about Grant Robertson and those welfare reforms, but yes, just hot off the press, unfortunately, is news of the death of Green MP Efeso Collins, former Auckland councillor, and a really important person in New Zealand politics who, has made some big contributions. And I think a lot of people in your program will know him as a man of faith and someone who's been active in South Auckland in particular, with the Pacifica community there, and he ran for mayor back in 2016, I think it was, or was it 2020? I forget.
Last run,
And he was a Labour Party councillor in Auckland, and then he graduated to national politics, running for the Green Party, and he got in on the list, but unfortunately he was involved in a charity run race this morning at Britomart, I think for the Child Fund charity, and on that run, unfortunately, he collapsed and has apparently died. So that's just really shocking news, and our hearts obviously go out to his family and everyone close to him.
Shocking stuff this morning, and not what you expect, especially from somebody, I suppose, relatively young in politics. And so
he was 49, so that's very young.
And I mean, that is a shock and a surprise, perhaps awkward segue, but much less of a surprise with Grant Robertson with the last election, particularly with the decision to not stand as a local candidate in the seat as a former finance minister. Of course, that saves public money, as it were, but he's decided not to continue in politics. He will be replaced on the list. No surprises from you, I imagine?
Not particularly. Grant Robertson has been an MP since 2008. So that's 14, 15? No, it's a lot of years. And and it was clear that he had lost his love of the job. And especially when Ardern stepped down, some people had predicted that he might stand up and become Prime Minister to replace her, but apparently no. He was exhausted then, and it was no surprise when he didn't stand for Wellington Central. I think he held in there so not to be deserting the Labour Party at the last election. But his eye has been on getting out, and so he's been appointed as essentially the head of University of Otago, the Vice Chancellor, and that's actually quite a big deal, because for a number of reasons. I mean, for him personally, it's a homecoming to the university, his alma mater, where he grew up, where he was a student politician. He was the president of the Students' Association, and he's going back to that university, and he's not an academic, so there's I think a lot of academics in New Zealand that are quite surprised by this, to have someone with a BA going on to lead the university, and to go to a salary of, I think it's $625,000 a year. So he's going to be paid more than the Prime Minister, and it's a prestigious job. I think he'll do very well in it, because he has a lot of leadership skills. He'll be a very good champion for that university, and very good at lobbying for that university with government and so forth. But of course, there'll be some who might be a bit more reticent, given if you look back at his time as finance minister, there's been a lot of pros and cons. And I think those on the left generally, think he did really well getting us through COVID. Those on the right think he wasn't as careful with money as he should have been, and that we've ended up with some huge budget deficits, and the government spending being, from some people's view, out of control, quite significant.
Well, certainly inheriting Vice Vice-Chancellor position of Otago University. Some financial challenges for that institution. Remains to be seen whether a former finance minister will be able to make the difference in that particular space financially, if not academically, in that regard, but certainly bring some profile with him in that space.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, yeah, I think it's a coup for the university. It's a high-profile leader they'll now have. And yes, you're right, that university is in a lot of difficulty, as most are.
Yep.
And it's kind of ironic because a lot of the universities do blame the former finance minister for letting them collapse into that state. And so it was interesting to see the union that represents academics yesterday. They sort of gave some congratulations to him, but also said, look, I hope you do better than you've done as Minister of Finance with us. So yeah, it's bittersweet for some academics, I think.
Let's clean up the mess you made, perhaps. Hey, on the, I suppose the big policy announcements this week to do with welfare, and some people would describe this as cracking down on beneficiaries. Other people would say, no, this is just the end of the free ride, some welfare reform. In terms of expectations, though, is this where you thought it would land?
Yeah, I mean, it's still a bit unsure where it's landing up. So just to take you back, all welfare systems have some sort of sanctions for the recipients of benefits that they need to meet certain criteria. And so in New Zealand, we do have sanctions on those that are on job seeking or unemployment benefits, that they must be looking for work, etc. And this has been around really since the 1990s in New Zealand in relatively tough form. Labor in the last government didn't get rid of all of these. So National campaigned on toughening those up. Last year, they said that if they got into government, they would crack down on welfare recipients to make sure they're truly looking for work. And they've promised some bigger reforms of those coming. But at this stage, the announcement this week, especially from the Prime Minister, Christopher Luxon, was that, tough love is what's coming. But there wasn't really a lot of new detail. He just said, really, they're going to be more vigorously enforcing the rules. So some commentators have said, really, this is a bit of nothingness. It's kind of because he hasn't got enough other big issues to kind of announce. So, and then welfare advocates are saying, well, this isn't what welfare beneficiaries need at the moment. It's blaming them, it's punishing them for the difficult situations they're in.
So-called beneficiary bashing. Now, they've also announced some type of traffic light system. Hopefully it's a little bit clearer than the last time a government announced a traffic light system as to what that means and who's in and who's out and all of that type of stuff. But hey, Bryce, we appreciate you taking the time to chat with us this morning. Thanks very much for your time.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks for joining us on Rhema. Now, if you found value in today's content, hit that like button. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing to our channel with the subscribe button. This really helps us to continue to produce more quality content for you. And hey, if you'd like to stay updated and never miss any of our future videos, ring that notification bell as well. Don't forget to follow us on our other socials, which are in the description below. And until then, stay tuned.